It was the happiest day of the month of January. At least, it was supposed to be. My wife Sharon and I planned a trip to the mall to buy a birthday gift for our daughter, Cynthia. Cynthia was very excited to celebrate her 12th birthday, so we wanted to get her the perfect present, no matter how long it took us to find it. Because Sharon and I usually finish work late, we were only able to visit the mall right before closing hours. This was our first time visiting this particular mall, and, as expected, the place looked bigger on the inside than it did on the outside. It was magnificently mesmerizing. I could have remained staring at the shiny ceiling for hours if Sharon had not grabbed me by my hand and dragged me straight to the kids and gift section. We looked around, zipping in and out of multiple stores, but found nothing worthy of our beautiful Cynthia. That's when we decided to search each store individually to not waste time. At some point, Sharon and I got separated on 2 different floors. Unsuccessful in my search, I decided to walk the hallways for any stores I may have missed. While staring at the bright spotlights above me, I bumped into an old lady with a walking cane. I apologized multiple times, but her face showed no expression. I thought maybe I had upset her, but I couldn't really tell for sure. After a few long seconds, her dull face turned bright. She smiled at me as though I told her she won the lottery. I didn't clearly understand the reasons behind that grin, but I bowed my head and went on my way. I decided to purchase something for myself while waiting for Sharon to finish browsing the first floor. I tried on a few things in a men's boutique. The saleswoman was very helpful and took a lot of time offering her opinion on whatever I tried on. As I turned towards the dressing room with a blue button-down cotton shirt hanging from my forearm, the lights in the back half of the store turned off. I asked the saleswoman about it, and she said that it meant the mall closes in 30 minutes. Looking down at my wristwatch, I realized that I had been in the mall for nearly 3 hours. The time went by so fast that I didn't even notice. I needed to call Sharon immediately, so I reached for my phone in my trousers' right pocket. It wasn't there. How could that be? I frantically searched all my pockets, and eventually the fitting rooms in the store. I was relieved to find a phone sitting on the chair in the last dressing room, but was soon disappointed. Unlike my dark gray smartphone, this one was navy blue with gray vertical stripes. Crap, I thought. That's not my phone. I lifted my head towards the mirror and almost screamed in terror at what I saw standing behind me. The mirror revealed the reflection of the strange old woman I bumped into earlier. I jumped in shock and turned around to ask her if that phone was hers. But before I could, she gave me a creepy smile and closed the curtain. Only one corner of her mouth moved upward while the other remained motionless. By the time I reopened the curtain, she was already gone. I looked around the store, but the old woman was nowhere in sight. I felt knots forming in my stomach, and I didn't want to spend another moment there. I changed back into my clothes, paid for the shirt, and left. A final glance around the store revealed to me that there was no security cameras located near the dressing rooms, which meant I would have to locate my phone on my own. I asked myself, why would someone steal a phone and not a wallet? How ridiculous. Since I lost my phone, I had to look for Sharon myself in every store, and I had to do it quickly as the mall was almost empty and the stores were closing up. I searched the second and ground floor. I even looked in the parking lot, hoping to see her waiting for me with a wrapped gift for our baby girl tucked under her arms, but she wasn't there. All of a sudden, I felt a strong urge to use the bathroom and made a beeline back indoors. After zipping through the hallways, I was able to find one on the ground floor a few stores away from the parking lot. There was no one in the bathroom since the mall was pretty much empty by that time. I knew that as soon as I was finished, I would have to locate the security team and convince them to help me spot my wife in the surveillance cameras. I finished up, and upon leaving the stall to wash my hands, accidentally knocked over a cup of coffee someone had left on the counter. Thankfully, none of it spilled on the bag with the shirt I just bought. I had no choice but to clean up after myself with soap and some toilet paper from the stalls. By the time I exited the bathroom, everything was dark, with only the floor spotlights still on. The mall was closed. I blamed myself for taking too long in the bathroom and decided to follow the lights. I thought they could lead me somewhere. Anywhere. Sharon must be looking for me anyways, I thought. I walked endlessly for minutes, not knowing where to go. Eventually, I stopped in one of the halls and started waving the surveillance cameras, hoping to catch someone's attention. There must have been people watching. The red dot light next to the camera lenses, which means it must be on, right? I waited a while, but nobody came to assist me. What kind of mall is this? At this point, there was no sign of Sharon. She must have exited the building before the mall closed. I gave up all hope of getting out of there and accepted having to spend the night stuck in a mall away from my family. I could feel the once cold air becoming warm as I sat on the floor in the middle of the hallway surrounded by darkness. I perked up as I heard some noise coming from the distance. It sounded like dripping water. I couldn't tell for sure where it was coming from, so I followed the noise until I ended up by the staff bathroom. I figured that somebody was there, perhaps the security staff, or a janitor, or anyone else who could help me. The door made a loud squeaky noise as I slowly cracked it open, loud enough to alarm whoever was inside. I called out and asked for permission to enter, but nobody answered. I called again. Nothing. The light was on, so I assumed someone must be in there. I pushed the door all the way open and noticed that the entire room was flooded with water. I took careful steps because the last thing I needed was to slip and die in a mall's staff bathroom. In the far corner of the bathroom was a leaky faucet. I tiptoed to the sink and turned the rusty handle until the leaking stopped. As I turned around, I spotted a locker room hidden to the back of the bathroom. I tiptoed towards the room very slowly and poked my head in. But nobody was there. There was no source of light in the locker room, and for some reason, standing in the door gave me a creepy feeling. I was overcome with an urge to get out of there, so I did. With soaking wet shoes, I bolted through the bathroom. I was about to open the door, but froze at the sound of water running again. How could that be? I was too scared to even look behind me, so I grabbed the door handle, swung the door open, and ran out of the bathroom. As the door closed behind me, the sound of running water grew louder and louder. My plan to leave was interrupted by what sounded like a woman crying. I pressed my ear against the bathroom door and listened. My eyes grew wide when I heard the voice. It sounded just like my Sharon. I pushed the door open once again, scanning the bathroom for my wife. Although surprised by the weeping, I was happy to have company. Maybe she didn't leave after all. Maybe she stayed and searched for me and got locked in just as I had. I called out, but nobody answered me. The wailing sounded like it was coming from the locker room. Strange, I thought to myself. I was just in there. I walked into the locker room, this time with less cautiousness as I was desperate to get to my wife. I could see a woman sitting on the floor in the far corner of the room. She had her back turned to me, but a faint stream of light pouring in from the bathroom made it possible for me to see her. Maybe I didn't see her the first time because of the poor lighting. I approached the woman, calling her name. Sharon? As I got close, I was able to recognize her immediately from her clothes. I froze in confusion as I recognized her as the old woman I ran into twice before. I could feel the blood leaving my face as my eyes widened in fright. Nothing made sense when I looked at her face. Her skin was irritated and filled with holes. I jumped and almost slipped in my wet shoes at the sight of her disturbing face. She seemed offended by my reaction and started to scream at me while crawling in my direction. I didn't know what else I should do, so I ran, looking over my shoulders every few seconds. What was wrong with her? I couldn't make any sense of it. I ran until I located a small room to seek refuge. After locking the door behind me, I leaned against the wall and tilted my head back to allow more air into my lungs. My mind raced as I tried to calm my breathing and make sense of what just happened. I looked around and realized that I was in a storage room of sorts. There were shelves everywhere, filled with everything from old Christmas decorations to bulky cleaning supplies. The dust that filled the room made my nose itch. Suddenly, a white light began flashing from the shelf directly in front of me. I moved closer to see what it was. My heart raced when I realized it was the same phone that I found earlier in the dressing room upstairs. How on earth did that get in here?